because one element of this is who would govern Gaza in the short term. We know in the long term they would like to get back to some form of Palestinian state governance, but that's seen as pretty impractical for the first, I don't know if we're talking several months or the first couple of years. So this plan, and you mentioned the key parts we're hearing so far, but it's something that Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, has been working on along with Tony Blair.
The Times and Sunday Times Washington editor Katy joins me from Trumpton on all the latest excitement, not least about paracetamols and their role in perhaps causing autism, which didn't go down terribly well over here, nor with indeed the medical establishment, did it?
Ever since this announcement, you've obviously had medical figures in the US questioning whether this is based on very much, and also the Democrats pushing back, suggesting this is irresponsible. I think Barack Obama was criticizing the decision in London this week when he gave a talk to the O2. But even though this is a medical story, of course, we slightly look at it through the sphere of politics. And I'd say that on the Republican side, it's not particularly controversial, if that makes sense. We haven't had a situation where it's dividing the base or so forth. It's much more the kind of the old establishment versus Maha and MAGA suggesting this is, and the establishment and medical figures are suggesting this is irresponsible thing for the president to do.
Yes, it's more really in the kind of warp and weft of things as the war on experts, isn't it? But it does seem to be that Trump is confusing correlation and causation, isn't he? That it may well be that people with paracetamol, that pregnancies have some problem, but that may not be the paracetamol itself, which is the cause.
Yeah. Exactly, and also a sense that you can obviously, there's lots of studies saying different things. There have been studies which suggest there's no link whatsoever, but then obviously you can normally find in any argument one stat to back up one way of thinking. I think what this feeds in obviously is RFK, Robert Kennedy, who in his role leading the health brief is seen as pretty controversial to begin with by parts of this, but also to the Trump coalition, MAHA, which is the Make America Healthy Again movement, was really seen as quite key to Donald Trump's victory in terms of bringing what they call the granola mums over to Trump world. And within that movement, there's so many different aspects, but one big part of it is, yes, you get vaccine skepticism, but there's also skepticism against big pharma. There's the healthy food bit, having nuts in every meal, but there's also this big swathe, and I think this feeds into that. But one thing that is happening this week, of course, is you have pregnant women who perhaps have been taking paracetamol who are now, of course, very anxious,
very worried,
because they're seeing this advice from the government, which may not be founded or anything that you even need to worry about, but clearly is something that's going to give you quite a lot of concern if you're already in your pregnancy.
Yeah. Now, another bravura performance by, if not entirely coherent performance, by Donald Trump at the United Nations. London is going to be under Sharia law, and Europe is destroying itself through inward immigration. This was more of the same, but the apocalyptic scenario stated even more boldly by Donald Trump. He doesn't have much time for Europe, does he?
No, and I think what was interesting is, there was so much to take in this speech, to be honest, but obviously we're looking at it from a slightly European angle, and the speeches are meant to be 15 minutes at the United Nations General Assembly. Most leaders do not stick to that. Donald Trump went for 54 minutes, so he managed to get through a lot. But he also managed to focus on escalators, his teleprompter not working. But I was still struck watching it by how much time was spent criticizing Europe, to your point. And yeah. I think particularly if we compared it with a week before in the state visit press conference, where clearly the US president was on his absolute best behavior, having been embraced by the royal family the night before. So even when Donald Trump stood next to Keir Starmer talking about mass migration at Chequers, he was quite careful not to do anything too direct in terms of criticism, even if the inference was America's doing everything to control immigration, that inferring the UK was not. This time it was almost though the state visit was out the way. He didn't have to worry about upsetting the King Charles, and he just went for it. And I think it does feed into a sense in the US, which I think lots of people in the UK will disagree with. But Donald Trump is happy to interfere along with his administration or give advice and lecture parts of the UK and Europe in a way that he does not do with countries in the Middle East. He said to the Middle East earlier this year, the time of us telling you how to live are over. But they will tell the UK and Europe how to live. And that's because
Yes,
they ultimately
indeed.
think it's because they think we are a like-minded ally, and therefore it's a bigger issue if we start to do something different. But I think that still will obviously rile a lot of people on the receiving end of the advice.
Yes, yes, it made me chuckle anyway. Breaking story. The US apparently has a peace plan for Gaza. This proposal has been seen by the Times of Israel. It's only broken this morning in the Times of Israel. It involves encouraging Palestinians to remain in Gaza and establish a pathway to a future Palestinian state via a dialogue between Israel and the Palestinians to agree on a political horizon for, quotes, peaceful coexistence. It would also involve a requirement for Hamas to disarm. Do you know any more about this, Katy?
Yeah, well, this and also what we know this might involve is Tony Blair.
Yes.
Because because the one element of this is who would govern Gaza in the short term. We know in the long term they would like to get back to some form of Palestinian state governance, but that's seen as pretty impractical for the first, I don't know if we're talking several months or the first couple of years. So this plan, and you mentioned the key parts we're hearing so far, but it's something that Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, has been working on along with Tony Blair. And now it emerges that Tony Blair would put himself forward, one could say, to almost be the head of governing Gaza for a period of time. And that is something which the administration clearly are open to, in the sense that Blair has been at meetings at the White House talking about the future of Gaza. So I think there's still lots of hurdles in this plan. But probably the key takeaway is, it wasn't so long ago that there was a lot of talk about displacing Palestinians, so asking them to leave Gaza. Potentially they might get to come back, but leaving. And with this plan, I think one of the key developments is the idea is Palestinians remaining in the Strip.
Yes, yes. What could possibly go wrong? Tony Blair as overseer of Gaza. Anyway, you can read Katy Balls in the Sunday Times tomorrow or with a digital subscription via thetimes.com. Thanks a lot, Katy. Always good to talk to you.